Welcome back to another episode of the Casey Campbell podcast. Casey Campbell with you, of course. Pleased to be joined by none other than Daniel Dash of the Michigan Daily. If you don't recognize him, he's the really tall one. So, of course, he'll be covering football this year for them alongside Brendan Roos and Jared Greenspan. How's it going, man?
I'm doing well. You say the tall one, but I'm pretty much eye to eye with some of these players.
Now I'm talking about his writers and stuff.
Okay, gotcha. Actually, I grew another inch this past year. I'm up to 6'9" now. Yeah.
Dang. So anyway, it's going to be quite interesting this year, with everything with college sports, and it's going to be a new era of college athletics as with this name, image, and likeness thing. Before we get into the football aspect of things, how do you think that's going so far? Because we've seen athletes partner with major companies, but we've also seen athletes do a bunch of, smaller stuff. And, look at what Adrian Nunez is doing on TikTok and all that. But how do you think that's all going so far?
I've heard this term tossed around a few times, but I really do think it fits, and that's the Wild West. I mean, you look at the minimal framework involved and the lack of direction from the NCAA has really opened a lot of doors and really kind of blown open Pandora's box. And you see some guys were definitely ready for it. Other guys are kind of scrambling to catch up to the 8 ball. I think you could say the same about schools. And some schools were really prepared for it. I know Kentucky and Alabama had really, really good NLI policies in place before July 1st. And then others were kind of straggling behind and trying to catch up. So I think a lot of that has shown through in what's gone on over this first week of NIL, and probably will continue until this fall, and will continue until there's some sort of uniform guidelines.
Right. So, yeah, I know that a lot of athletes that, you've seen probably, some have, signed their own, merch deals and all that fun stuff and being off of them. A lot of questions are, we haven't seen really in Ann Arbor, haven't seen a lot of guys signing autographs yet or talking about that. What are we going to see in terms of that for people that, don't really know what all this means of what they can do?
It's coming. It's all coming, and it's all coming fast. I think a lot of it's going to materialize on the fly. I think a good amount of it will probably take shape as things move along. I know that one tidbit of Michigan's policy that's worth keeping in mind is that athletes need to submit their deals to the school for approval 7 days before they can commence. So I think that there's going to be some form of a mini heads up in Ann Arbor if anything is coming along, anything coming down the pike. But I think in general across the country, a lot of it's going to take shape quickly.
So, for example, the athletes just can't go. They can't just go sign. I think somebody used this. They can't walk into a burger place, sign a deal, and then tweet, and then immediately tweet about it.
Right. Michigan needs to approve it 7 days in advance.
Right. Okay, so speaking of Michigan football, it's interesting. It's definitely going to be this year. What's it going to be? What is it going to be like this year? I know it's an interesting year for them because of everything that happened last year, and then basically it got blown up because changes. Of course, the defense has changed and all that. A lot of guys are brand new to the team. What's that going to be like this year? What are some of the big storylines coming in?
I'll tell you what, if you are a Michigan fan, it can't be worse than last year. You look at this schedule, they get a nice on-ramp with Western Michigan to open the season. Yeah. Then they go right into a premier game against Washington. That's a night game nationally televised on ABC. It's going to be the first big test for a very new team. The thing is, the personnel this year isn't that different. It's the complete overhaul of Jim Harbaugh's coaching staff that gives this team a brand new feel. Look at the defensive side of the ball. You see a brand new defensive coordinator in Mike McDonald. You see brand new assistants in Steve Klinkscale, Ron Bellamy, George Hilo. You get a lot of new guys on that side of the ball, and it's going to make a big difference. And I think you're going to see it from the start. Looks like they're moving towards a pretty pro NFL style 3-4 defense. That's something that we didn't really see much under Don Brown. Gone is the Viper, a staple of Michigan's defense under Don Brown. Don Brown now obviously the defensive coordinator at Arizona. But you look at Michigan's schedule, it's not easy. They get the home game against Washington. Also on the schedule, trips to Wisconsin, to Penn State. They get Indiana, Northwestern, and Ohio State at home. Like there's cause for concern across the board if they don't play their best football every Saturday.
Did you forget the trip to East Lansing too?
Michigan State's going to be bad this year, but everyone said the same thing last year. So we'll
Yeah,
see.
I mean, you said, yeah, it's going to definitely be interesting because, of course, that's an up and coming program. Like, going around the Big Ten, because how's that going to, what is the landscape of the Big Ten? Is it going to be
It's
what we
Ohio
see?
State and then everyone else.
Okay, all right, that's not new, but
Big Ten West should be interesting. I think
yeah,
Wisconsin and Iowa both have a legitimate chance to win the Big Ten West, and I wouldn't be surprised if Minnesota rebounds.
yeah, and of course, Illinois has a new head coach as well. People forget Illinois has a new head coach. Of course, Brett Mueller
People
was
forget Illinois has a football team sometimes.
yes, yeah, they do. What? Okay, so obviously the biggest, we'll kind of break this down, kind of defensive guys you need to watch out for.
Two come to mind immediately. These two guys have legitimate chances at being first-round picks in next year's NFL draft. They are Aiden Hutchinson and Daxton Hill. Daxton Hill, really, I mean, 2 years in, he's been really consistent and really productive, but he hasn't had that major breakout stardom season. I think this could be that. I think that working with a new defensive backs coach, new safeties coach, and Ron Bellamy and Steve Klingscale is only going to help him. I wouldn't be surprised if we see him play nickel. I think primarily he's been a safety over his first 2 years, but I think seeing him as the nickel cornerback could be in play. And Michigan has great depth in the safety room. Can't necessarily say the same about the cornerbacks room. So I think that Dax Hill is really going to burst onto the scene in a way that a 5-star top 20 kid should.
Right.
Aiden Hutchinson, obviously coming back from a season-ending injury last year, he's a physical specimen. He's 6'6", probably 280, 290 pounds, and by far the strongest guy coming off the edge in Michigan's pass rushing room. I think a lot of Michigan fans were spoiled having him and Kwity Paye last year. It's a shame that they couldn't both stay healthy, but I think that we're in for a big bounce back season for Aiden Hutchinson. I think that's one of the main reasons he decided to come back to school.
Okay, so the big question on the offensive side, who's going to be the quarterback this year?
I'd be really surprised if it wasn't Cade McNamara week one. I don't think JJ McCarthy is going to be physically ready. I think that being an 18-year-old true freshman in college football is unbelievably difficult. He'd be pretty well suited by a year of putting on strength, conditioning, learning the system. But I really wouldn't be surprised if Alan Bowman pushes for that week one starting job. He has really good touch, throws a great ball. And I mean, you look at his personal journey, I don't think he's transferring to Michigan to be a backup after being a starter at Texas Tech and playing good football.
Yeah. Okay, so obviously there's going to be a lot more position changes. When we look at running backs, wide receivers, where are we at in terms of that?
I think it's going to be a big year for Blake Corum. I think Hassan Haskins is your workhorse every down back, but I think that when Blake Corum touches the football, good things happen. Really explosive, really agile, makes a lot of guys miss. I really thought that he'd get more touches last year. I think that after looking at what he did with those touches, this staff should make a concerted effort to get him the football more this year. And then if you want to talk about a third running back, I think Donovan Edwards is going to be a superstar. Whether or not that happens his freshman year, I guess we'll find out this fall. But I think down the line, he has the highest upside of anyone in this year's running back room. If you're talking about long-term production, wide receiver room took a hit. They lost Xavier Worthy to Texas. Giles Jackson transferred out. They lost Nico Collins to the draft, even though he opted out of last year. Guy I love watching him play, love watching his effort is Ronnie Bell. He's been the leading receiver now the past 2 years. I think Cornelius Johnson and Roman Wilson are due for big steps forward. Roman Wilson always impresses me with his speed. Him and AJ Henning just straight up beat guys off the line of scrimmage. And then I think that in this year's passing game, it's really worth watching for Blake Corum and Donovan Edwards out of the backfield. I think they both have great hands.
Yeah. Okay, so a lot of changes, offensive line. There's also going to be a new kicker this year too.
Yeah? Who's your pick?
I don't know.
Guess we'll find out.
So kind of go into that. Who's really up there? I mean, I know most of them. So
For the kicking job, then walk us through it. Who do you think some of the candidates are? Who do you think we might see kicking the field goals?
could see Jake Moody. We could see there's a couple freshmen that are in there. Talked to Jake a few months ago. Um, seems like he's ready for a big year, especially now that Quinn's gone. But who knows?
I know it must have been messing with both of their heads when each of them were there last year. Um,
Yeah.
Jake Moody 1 for 4 on field goals last year. His only make came in the 40 to 49 yard range. It was a 40-yard field goal. Quinn Nordine 2 for 5 on field goals. Michigan as a team 3 for 9 on field goals last year. It was a pretty nightmarish season, abbreviated season, I should say, for the kickers.
Yeah, they've got a good one. They've got some freshmen coming in. I think I know a lot of people were high on Tommy Doman.
Is he going to be kicking or punting or both?
I don't know. What do I know? I haven't done my. We'll have to see because the questions haven't been answered yet for that standpoint. Okay,
there is one. Kicking is something that normally sorts itself out in fall camp.
Pretty much. So there is going to be, when you go down to media day in a few weeks, there's going to be a lot of questions for Jim about what. Of course, we're talking about of course Dr. Anderson, Bo Schembechler. Of course, that's been in the news pretty much for the last few years. And of course, Jim had some comments when he was in Grand Rapids. What has that been like to how is that going for him, and how's that going to play out throughout the season? Because I know he's going to get a lot of things for that.
He's going to get questions throughout the season, no matter what he says. It's not going to go away. I think even if Michigan settles, which I really hope that they do, I think that it's worth extending an olive branch. I think that when you look at the situation, above all, you need to prioritize honesty and accountability. It really, really stinks that it's, all come out like this, and everything, all of these men who have been hurt and scarred were taken advantage of. And I think that that's something that Michigan has to recognize as an institutional fault. I think Michigan has to go back and really look through all the wrongdoing. I think it was great that they commissioned a report by the WilmerHale law firm. I read through that report. I think it was a great report. If you haven't read the report and you don't want to read the 100-something pages, I would recommend John U. Bacon's summary of the facts. It's on his blog. Did a great job breaking down everything in that report, all of the facts, nothing with a tainted twist or an agenda. And I think that moving forward, it's going to be really important to keep the facts in mind and keep the facts at the forefront, because these men, and really everyone that Dr. Anderson abused while he was a doctor at Michigan's University Health Services and within the athletic department, deserve justice.
Yeah, definitely. It's tough because here's the thing. Dr. Anderson, we won't know what happened because Dr. Anderson's dead. Bo Schembechler is dead. So from that aspect, we don't know. But it's definitely going to be interesting to see how all that plays out. And of course, John, as John U. Bacon's one of the best out there when it comes to this kind of stuff. No one knows probably about college football. That's probably the one person I go to if I need like a college football history question or something like that. So definitely, for sure. Hey, one more thing. There's a big difference this year at the Big House. There's going to be a bunch of people there. All 100,000 plus of them. Yeah. So wasn't as big of a crowd as we had in the Indy 500, but but it's definitely going to be good to see a lot of people back. But who knows what could happen, throughout the year. It's it's an ongoing situation, of course, with the Delta variant and all that. How do you see? But it looks like for the most part, it's going to be business as usual, and it looks like media days are back in person. I'll be back. I'll be at MAC Media Day in a few weeks. Not sure if I'll be at Big Ten Media Day, but definitely going to be good. It's going to definitely change how kind of go back to normal and how you used to do things. So, how's that going to be for welcoming fans back and all that?
Oh, a welcome change. I think that what makes Michigan's home field advantage what it is the fans, the fan base, the student section. it's not going to feel normal looking out at a sea of people again. But I think ultimately people will adjust. And I mean, they go to these games for a reason. I think the fans genuinely love it. And they have a great home schedule this year. I think it'll be cool to see the Washington non-conference game. Then they get Rutgers, Northwestern Indiana, and the Saturday after Thanksgiving, Ohio State.
Saturday after Thanksgiving. That's going to be interesting because usually that would be on Thanksgiving weekend. So
Yeah, it is. It's the Saturday after Thanksgiving. So 2 days after Thanksgiving. Yeah.
Oh, interesting. The way you said it kind of confused me a little bit, but
I'm bad.
it's the week of Thanksgiving, so
Right.
it's that's good for sure. But anyway, always good to talk to you, Dash. Good to see you. I might be out there this year. Who knows?
Good. Well, I'm looking forward to seeing you in person.
Yeah, me too. All right, good to talk to you. Let's have you on again.
Sounds good. You just let me know when.